Seeds of Wisdom RV and Economic Updates Saturday afternoon, July 19, 25. Listen to the full version on the official dinarreport.com blog and become our supporter on Patreon. Good afternoon. Dinar recaps, U.S. targets Brazil's digital economy. PIX under scrutiny amid BRICS currency push. Trump administration launches probe into Brazil's fintech ecosystem and trade practices. In a bold escalation of trade tensions, the United States has launched a formal investigation into Brazil's digital payment system, placing particular focus on PIX, the country's central bank-run instant payment platform. The probe comes amid rising concerns in Washington over BRICS economic integration and the growing challenge to U.S. financial dominance. PIX, a fintech powerhouse redefining Brazil's economy. Launched in 2020 by Brazil's central bank, PIX has quickly become one of the world's most successful government-backed payment systems. The platform enables instant, 24/7 money transfers at little to no cost, bypassing traditional card networks and allowing direct mobile-based transactions. Over 150 million users. Accepted by more than 60 million businesses. Dominant across sectors, from street vendors to utilities. PIX has not only transformed domestic commerce but also disrupted foreign competitors, including Visa, MasterCard, and US-based fintech firms. Trade investigation details. Favoritism and free speech issues at center. U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer announced the investigation Tuesday, citing concerns over preferential treatment toward Brazil's regional trade partners, non-tariff barriers disadvantaging U.S. exporters, digital market discrimination, particularly through policies that limit U.S. tech firms. One key flashpoint: Brazil's Supreme Court suspension of X, formerly Twitter, in 2024, after Elon Musk refused to comply with censorship demands. The U.S. probe will assess whether such policies constitute discriminatory digital trade practices. Trump responds: tariffs and warnings over BRICS coordination. The investigation is part of a broader geopolitical and economic conflict. On July 7, President Donald Trump publicly urged Brazil to end its prosecution of former President Jair Bolsonaro, calling it a witch hunt. Days later, he announced a 50% tariff on Brazilian imports, effective August 1, and warned of the impending trade probe in a letter to President Lula da Silva. PIX in the global spotlight, U.S. concerns extend beyond Brazil. Though PIX operates only within Brazil, its integration with blockchain fintech services is gaining international attention. Services like Truther now allow global stablecoin transfers to be settled instantly into Brazilian bank accounts via PIX, effectively bypassing SWIFT, PayPal, and U.S. remittance giants like Western Union. This innovation threatens to undermine U.S. financial influence in developing economies and plays into broader BRICS strategies for de-dollarization. BRICS Pay, reserve currency, and U.S. response. At the heart of U.S. concerns is Brazil's role in BRICS, the growing economic alliance with Russia, India, China, and South Africa. In 2024, the bloc launched BRICS Pay, a cross-border settlement platform aimed at bypassing Western systems like SWIFT and facilitating local currency transactions. Moreover, BRICS leaders recently revived plans for a joint reserve currency, potentially replacing the US dollar in cross-border trade among member nations. These moves have drawn intense scrutiny from Washington, with Trump signaling a tougher stance on any country participating in what he views as a threat to US economic sovereignty. Targeting BRICS, US-NATO sanctions weaponize energy to pressure China and India. Sanctions expand beyond Russia, geopolitical tensions grow over BRICS energy independence and arms markets. A new phase of geopolitical pressure is unfolding as the US and NATO intensify sanctions aimed at the BRICS alliance, specifically by targeting Russian oil exports and BRICS energy trade routes. What appears on the surface as energy policy is increasingly being interpreted as a deeper strategic effort to undermine BRICS cooperation and redirect global arms and trade flows in the West's favor. Energy sanctions as economic weaponry. NATO Secretary-General Mark Rutte recently issued an ultimatum calling on nations, especially India, Brazil, and China, to halt purchases of Russian oil. This warning comes in tandem with a Trump-backed threat to impose 100% tariffs on countries that continue to import Russian crude. Russia accounts for approximately 15% of global oil exports. China and India are major importers of discounted Russian energy. BRICS energy trade is seen as a linchpin of the bloc's economic independence. Rutte's statement notably excluded Turkey, a NATO member and the third-largest importer of Russian crude, raising questions about the selective nature of the sanctions and their true geopolitical motive. Strategic goals, sanctions and Western arms sales. While oil sanctions dominate the headlines, defense economics is a major subtext of this policy. Western leaders appear to be using energy restrictions as a tool to disrupt BRICS trade infrastructure, open new arms sales markets across politically pressured regions, reassert Western dominance in global energy and military supply chains. Even as energy restrictions tighten, Europe continues to source 19% of its natural gas from Russia, revealing the fragile balance between ideology and economic necessity. Analysts predict that a hard blockade on Russian crude would raise oil prices by 20 to 30%, potentially backfiring on global markets. Market reaction: muted but calculated. Despite the aggressive tone of US and NATO policymakers, stock markets have shown little concern. This suggests investors see limited long-term enforcement or question the practical viability of isolating Russian energy at scale, especially when global demand remains strong. At $68 per barrel, oil prices remain sensitive to disruptions, and any supply reduction could cause ripple effects, not only in BRICS nations but in Western economies too. BRICS pushes back, strengthens internal trade channels. Russia and China have rejected the sanctions outright, reaffirming their commitment to uninterrupted bilateral trade. India has likewise continued oil purchases, resisting external pressure. Brazil, now under scrutiny from both U.S. trade officials and NATO figures, is quietly expanding internal financial networks and exploring alternative settlement systems. This BRICS resistance signals a long-term effort to build energy resilience and decouple from Western financial levers, including the SWIFT system and US dollar settlements. A geopolitical playbook beyond energy. While oil dominates the narrative, Trump's broader strategy seems to focus on testing BRICS unity, disrupting key China-India trade routes, expanding Western military-industrial influence. These moves reflect a multi-domain approach, leveraging sanctions not just to enforce political compliance, but to reshape global economic alignments in favor of the US and NATO. Analysts warn that continued use of sanctions as a geopolitical lever may accelerate the BRICS bloc's shift toward alternative institutions, deepening their commitment to independent trade, digital currency systems, and non-Western governance models. Listen to the full version on the official dinarreport.com blog and become our supporter on Patreon. Source: dinarrecaps.com